In the heart of Russia, a bridge that once connected the mainland to Crimea has vanished, not physically, but in function. Millions are now stranded, supply chains are collapsing, and a nation faces an unexpected gasoline crisis. One piece of infrastructure, taken for granted for years, has quietly brought a country to a standstill. How could a single bridge disrupt millions of lives? And what does it reveal about the fragility of modern life? Today, we uncover the story behind Moscow's Crimea Land Bridge and the chaos it has left in its wake.
For decades, the Crimea Land Bridge has stood as a symbol of Moscow's strategic and economic connection to the peninsula. Built to provide uninterrupted access to Crimea across the Kerch Strait, it was a lifeline for trade, travel, and energy transport. But in the early weeks of October 2025, reports began emerging that the bridge had become unusable. What started as a slow deterioration rapidly escalated into a full-scale disruption, leaving millions of people and countless industries in immediate crisis. The consequences of this collapse were felt almost instantly. Vehicles that once moved freely between mainland Russia and Crimea found themselves stranded. Freight shipments slowed to a crawl, and the flow of essential goods, including food and fuel, was dramatically reduced. Across Moscow, St. Petersburg, and other major cities, long lines formed at gas stations as residents and commercial operators scrambled to secure gasoline and diesel. The shortage quickly became more than an inconvenience. It was a public emergency that tested both the infrastructure and the resilience of ordinary citizens. Economic analysts were quick to sound the alarm. Russia relies heavily on its transportation network to move energy resources, particularly gasoline, from production centers to population hubs. The sudden closure of the Crimea Land Bridge created bottlenecks along alternate routes.
The Russian government responded swiftly, issuing statements urging calm and emphasizing that alternative transport routes were being prioritized. Authorities announced measures to ration fuel for critical services, including hospitals, emergency services, and public transportation. Despite these reassurances, public confidence remained shaky. For many, the Crimea Land Bridge was not just a structure of steel and concrete, it was a symbol of stability. Its disappearance served as a stark reminder of how vulnerable even the most seemingly secure infrastructure can be to natural wear, accidents, or unforeseen events. Energy experts quickly analyzed the cascading consequences. The land bridge has historically served as a conduit for gasoline and other fuels from southern refineries into Crimea and, indirectly, into other parts of Russia. The civilian impact extended beyond the immediate need for gasoline. Commuters faced longer travel times, public transportation systems experienced strain, and delivery of essential goods slowed significantly. Hospitals reported difficulty maintaining supply chains for medical fuel and transport vehicles. Grocery stores saw shortages in staples such as bread, dairy products, and vegetables, as distribution trucks could not arrive on schedule. For many ordinary Russians, the disruption transformed routine daily activities into logistical challenges, highlighting how tightly modern life depends on functioning infrastructure. In Crimea itself, the effects were acute. Residents reported difficulties in commuting, accessing essential services, and securing fuel for heating and transportation. Businesses that depended on shipments to and from the mainland
citizens
were forced to scale back operations.
Ways. Communities organized carpooling schemes, shared fuel reserves, and established informal networks to support those most affected. Social media groups emerged as hubs for information sharing, helping people locate available fuel or alternative routes. While the situation was undeniably stressful, these grassroots responses illustrated the resilience and resourcefulness of everyday people in the face of sudden disruption. Experts emphasized that the situation highlights broader vulnerabilities. In an era of complex supply chains and centralized infrastructure, even a single failure can trigger wide-reaching consequences. Russia's dependence on the Crimea Land Bridge, both symbolically and practically, demonstrates how critical redundancy and contingency planning are in modern logistics. Policymakers are now debating
International
measures to
observers
prevent
also
similar
noted
crises.
the situation. Global energy markets watched Russia's internal disruptions with interest, particularly as fuel supply uncertainty can affect pricing and logistics abroad. While the immediate crisis was domestic, its ripple effects extended into the wider economic sphere. For some neighboring countries, the sudden limitation on Russian fuel exports created short-term adjustments in trade planning and supply chains. By the second week after the bridge became unusable, the government reported partial restoration of alternative routes, including ferries and inland transport corridors. While these measures alleviated some pressure, they could not fully replicate the efficiency of the land bridge. Citizens continued to face queues and rationing, and businesses remained cautious in scheduling deliveries. Economists cautioned that recovery would be gradual, requiring careful management.
Amid the challenges, some positive developments emerged. Communities collaborated to optimize fuel use, sharing resources to ensure that emergency services, hospitals, and essential transport continued to operate. Local authorities implemented rationing schemes and communicated supply updates more transparently, reducing uncertainty over time. Observers noted that these adaptive strategies, born of necessity, could serve as models for future infrastructure resilience planning. As weeks progressed, analysts turned their attention to long-term lessons. The sudden loss of the Crimea Land Bridge demonstrated the importance of diversified transport routes, contingency planning, and investment in infrastructure maintenance. It also highlighted the interdependence of transportation, energy, and daily life. For Russia, the event served as both a practical challenge and a symbolic reminder that even iconic projects are vulnerable to disruption. Ultimately, the crisis revealed the complex interplay between infrastructure, economy, and society. Millions experienced the immediate consequences of gasoline shortages, transport delays, and disrupted routines. Businesses faced logistical challenges that affected profitability and service delivery. Policymakers grappled with the need for urgent response measures and longer-term planning, and citizens adapted.
As Russia works to stabilize the situation, the crisis continues to unfold. Fuel distribution is gradually improving, alternative transport routes are being optimized, and public confidence, while shaken, is slowly being restored. Yet the lessons remain. Even monumental projects like the Crimea Land Bridge are not impervious, and the ripple effects of their failure are far-reaching, affecting lives, commerce, and the perception of security in ways both immediate and lasting. For millions of Russians, the collapse of the land bridge is more than a headline. It is a lived reality, a tangible disruption that reshapes daily life, tests infrastructure resilience, and highlights the intricate connections between transport, energy, and human experience. As the nation navigates this crisis, the story of the Crimea Land Bridge will stand as a reminder of both vulnerability